All right, hi everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast. And I am joined today by Grammy-winning conductor Michael Repper, and also now two-time Grammy nominee in the coming Grammys, which I believe are on February 1st. Do I have that right, Michael?
That's right. Can't wait.
Thank you for joining us for Best Orchestral Performance and also in the Classical Instrumental Solo category for his Coleridge-Taylor album, along with Curtis Stewart, performed by the National Philharmonic Orchestra. Michael, congratulations, and well-deserved.
Hey, thank you, David. I really, really appreciate it, and it's great to chat with you again.
Good to see you again, and let's just let you take the floor and tell us about the genesis of the album and everything that it took to get it recorded, produced, and all the way to the recognition that you've got.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm really proud of this project, and I think it's been very special. It was many years in the making. In late 2023, I was thinking about, what would I want to record again? What should be my next recording project? I've always loved the music of Samuel Coleridge-Taylor, who was a composer from England at the turn of the 20th century. He lived from 1875 to 1912. And he was very well celebrated during his time. Very well known in England, very well known here in the U.S. In fact, when he died, the king threw parades in his honor and gave pensions to his family, right, which was very rare for anyone, especially rare of someone from mixed descent and as a black person, right? Very, very rare if you consider the time of 1912.
Yeah, for sure.
Despite the success of his music during his time, I think due to biases and other barriers that black people have faced, his music was simply not given due attention in the years following his death. And it was too early for recording, right? It's 1912. So at that time, if you didn't have your music performed every year or all the time, it would very quickly fade from public consciousness. And that's what happened. Most of his music has disappeared, and there's very, very little of his music that is actually available in performable format, that if people wanted to perform it today for orchestra. And I loved doing his music, and it had basically run out of other, I knew that he had written so much more, but we had run out of what we could actually do based on what was available, right? And so I thought, okay, well, his 150th birthday is coming up in 2025, August 2025. Again, this was late 23 when I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
What if we researched and found some of his other great music, reconstituted the parts, republished them, and recorded them, and made them just available so that people could hear them? And if we release it in August of 2025, right at his 150th birthday, it would be a fantastic celebration of Coleridge-Taylor as a composer. And so that's exactly what we did. I worked with a team of enthusiasts and musicologists and various other people. We found manuscripts for works of his that are truly exceptional at the British Library, at the Library of Congress, various other places. Spoke with people from all over the world, trying to hunt down this music. Again, as a team, painstakingly rewrote the music. I mean, took his original manuscripts, handwritten, and digitized them, made them, performable in today's modern format. And I called my friend Jim Kelly, who's the executive director of the National Philharmonic, and I said, I've got this idea for this album. I think it's going to be really special. I think it's a great opportunity to highlight this composer. And we had found a fantastic tone poem called Toussaint L'Ouverture, which is about the eponymous leader of the Haitian Revolution. I mean, the general who more or less led the revolt on behalf of the enslaved population of Haiti and basically freed Haiti from French colonial rule. Fantastic tone poem, super energetic and romantic and lush, and it has very hummable tunes. It's really just excellent writing. That opens the disc. We found a violin concerto, a little violin concertino, actually, kind of like a Symphonina. It's a very, very short, but fantastic nonetheless. Concerto for violin that he called a ballade, which is fantastic, and one of his earliest pieces that hadn't been played since 1899. And then, I think most special of all, one of Coleridge-Taylor's most successful and most famous pieces, which is still played today, is a set of 24 arrangements of spirituals that he called the 24 Negro Melodies. He wrote them for piano. Well, we actually found an arrangement of 5 of those 24 that he wrote for orchestra, but which were never published. We literally found them loose leaf paper manuscripts, had never been published, had never been played. And I said, that's incredible. We must do these. So that is also on the album. And then I needed a violinist to play the ballade, obviously, and Curtis Stewart came to mind immediately for two reasons. Number one, I knew this would be right up his alley. And he's an incredible violinist, and I knew that he would love to learn the ballade and do all of that. But I also knew that he had written 3 arrangements of those 24 Negro melodies in a modern blues, folk, bluegrass, also classical style. In his unique style, it's almost unqualifiable in terms of what it's fantastic. It also involves singing and all sorts of cool stuff. And I thought, how perfect if we could pair Coleridge-Taylor's original 5 with the modern ones that Curtis Stewart just did a couple of years ago. How fantastic, because, and this sort of rounds off the entire idea of the album, Samuel Coleridge-Taylor said of those 24 Negro melodies, he said, what Brahms has done for the Hungarian, and what Dvorak's done for the Bohemian, and what Grieg has done for the Norwegian, I, Coleridge-Taylor, want to do for these Negro melodies, right? I want them to have a life. And so by pairing his originals with the modern ones, hopefully giving them a life beyond. And the coolest part, I think, is that in the end, we decided to publish all of the orchestra parts for everything online for free. So, the entire mission of the project was to make this music accessible, to try to promote Coleridge-Taylor as a composer, to try to, do what we could to add to the diversification of the repertoire that gets performed at orchestras all over the place. And so making the parts available for free, I think, was part of that. And we already know of several orchestras that have downloaded the parts and are planning to use them.
That's great.
So that's it. It resulted in this album, and we're very proud of how it came out, and it turned out great. It was Sirius XM's album of the week for a week, which was awesome. And they continue to highlight it, and it's been reviewed very well, and we're very proud of it. And we're very honored for the nomination, most of all on behalf of Coleridge-Taylor. Of course, it's a big personal honor, and we're very thankful to all the voters who considered us and voted for us in the first round. But the weight of the Grammy nomination, and hopefully a Grammy win, will be or would be phenomenal for Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. He's a composer who deserves to get played a lot more than he is in our orchestra environment. So
let me ask a question.
That's
that's
how it
great.
came to be.
Total ignorance on my part. Does Coleridge-Taylor have descendants alive now who are musicians, in contact with you, anything at all? Like, any connection?
It's a great question. He had one daughter who was a composer, and a pianist also, Avril Coleridge-Taylor, Avril Coleridge-Taylor. Also fantastic composer and a pianist in her own right. When we performed this music live, and when we recorded it in February, it came out in August, we gave live performance of it with the National Philharmonic in September. We did research into seeing whether we could find any descendants, and we couldn't. And it's not to say they don't exist, but I wish that I could be in touch with descendants of his or descendants of hers. And we also performed music of hers on that concert too. So that's just a little bit heartbreaking. Because I wish that if he did have descendants that they could know that this was going on.
Yeah.
So to my knowledge, no. But yeah.
Well, that'll be part of the additional treasure hunt that you have to go on.
Yeah.
And
one of the musicologists, to your point, one of the musicologists that I work with, his name is Lionel Harrison. He'd been doing work into Coleridge-Taylor 20 years before any of us started. He really was a partner on this. He sent me a flash drive that's filled with all kinds of other Coleridge-Taylor goodies that, based on the success of this album, there may be more in the works in the future, because people love listening to his music. The cool part about Coleridge-Taylor too, and this is one of my passions, I love working on new music. I mean, music that was written today or a week ago or whatever. I love that. I also love working on new old music like this, and that's fun in a way also because the music tends to be very accessible to most people. Right? Coleridge-Taylor's writing is very cinematic. It's very colorful. It's very accessible. The melodies are very hummable. It's like Rachmaninoff in many ways. The album is very colorful. The reason for that is that when they were asking me, what should the album cover color be, I said, I have no idea, but whatever it is, it should just be a lot of color. Because when you listen to his music, it's just all these. It's like, I've said this several times. He was a composer who painted with every crayon in the box, like all 64 crayons in the box, not just like the 8, but like all of the weird ones that you don't really use. he used them, and he knew how to use them. So yeah, we had a fantastic time working on it, and putting together the parts was a gigantic endeavor, but worth it completely.
Yeah, absolutely. You recorded with the National Philharmonic, and I'm guessing you could have chosen any orchestra, or maybe had a choice of orchestras, maybe not any orchestra, but you had a choice of orchestras. What led you to the National Philharmonic to do this recording?
It's a really good question. They were the first orchestra I approached, and I'm really happy that they said yes. It fit their mission. It was right up their mission. The National Philharmonic has a very earned reputation for diverse repertoire programming, for wanting to explore these kinds of projects, for taking risks. I mean, calculated risks in this way, because of course recording an album is phenomenally expensive and involves risk. But I was looking for an organization that would rally behind the idea. National Philharmonic, and they colloquially go by NatPhil. I suspected that they would jump at it, and they did. I've known their leadership team for quite some time, and have worked with, now I've worked with all their musicians, but before we did this album, had worked with a good number of the musicians, because I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and so it was local, and it just made sense.
When you go to record with them, what is the recording process like? You're in studio. Yep. You've got your engineers and everything else too. They're the unsung heroes as always, right? But
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So did you plan it to record over a day, multiple days? What is the plan for when you're putting an album together like that?
Yeah, good question. And you mentioned the production team. I also invited Judy Sherman to produce this one. I'm very, very glad and honored that she said yes. She also did our New York Youth Symphony album a couple of years ago, and she's one of the best in the business, and I trust her ear. She's got an unforgiving ear, and I mean that in a good way, because she hears everything. So she was a wonderful partner. Yeah, the entire process was a 3-day thing. We had one rehearsal on day one, which also served as a sound check, and then the next day we had sessions, and then the following day we had sessions. And basically there are 4 pieces on the album, and more or less each one of them fit into one session. I mean, sometimes we overlapped because each piece is 17, 18 minutes long, give or take, that fit into one session. And it was, the orchestra did a fantastic job, because none of this music was familiar. I mean, all of us, myself included. I mean, I had studied the music, obviously, and I knew what it would sound like, but all of us were actually hearing it for the first time together. And, that's normal, but it was still, very fast-paced. We had some interesting things happen. For one thing, we weren't in a studio, we were in a concert hall.
Okay.
It's a studio, but we were doing it in a concert hall. But in one of, and it's on one of the ones that were nominated for classical solo. It's for The Angels Changed My Name. No, not that one. It was for They Will Not Lend Me a Child, the 4th track. That one we did on one take. We had 30 minutes budgeted to rehearse and record that one. And at the moment that came, the stage door was attacked by the loudest flock, or whatever the term for it is, of geese in the world. And there were a lot of them, and they were so loud that it was coming through the door, through the stage door, down the hallway, through the giant, metal door to the stage, and we were like, what's going on here? And it was the kind of thing where it's like we're listening and trying to get them to go away, and then come back, and then they shut up finally, and we're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And the energy of that track, actually, you can hear our phenomenal concentration, because we're like,
we don't know when they're coming back.
One chance, let's go. But the energy behind that, I think, led to a really very powerful recording in that case. But it's just kind of a funny story of how that particular track came to be.
Well, that'll never happen again.
No, exactly. And now we know that if you're recording at Schlesinger Hall in Alexandria, definitely make sure that from 5 to 5:30 you have a break, because apparently, and we didn't know this, but apparently those geese are very common. I mean, that they come at a very that's the time they come. We learned this after the fact, of course. So now we know that has to be break.
Yeah. Well, maybe the folks at Aflac will find you. And
yeah, we thought,
put you in a commercial or something.
Yeah, we said the same thing. Yeah, it's so funny.
My goodness.
So, yeah.
Now, did you do anything that would be like a MIDI mock-up of the work before you went to do the live performance? No, just work off the score?
No, just worked off the score. So one of the tracks, the opening track, Toussaint L'Ouverture, the tone poem, which is just such an incredible piece. I had done that in preparation for this album. Mm-hmm. I did it once at a different orchestra before, in October of 24.
Okay.
Because I wanted to hear that one live. And it also allowed me to help get the parts more organized, and we could sort of fix any errors in the parts or anything like that. So I had heard that one before, just from having done it with the orchestra. The other ones, it truly was the first time. The Ballade, the violin concertino, is also such a good piece. There is a recording of that with piano. For whatever reason, the violin and piano arrangement of it that he did himself, that Coleridge-Taylor did himself back in 1902, existed. It stayed in publication. You can't buy it, but I think you can get it. You can download it online. And there's one recording of a violinist doing it with piano. So we could get a sense of what that was, but actually not really, because his orchestra... Well, he did the orchestra first, and then the piano reduction after that. The piano reduction is different in many ways. It's neither better or worse. It's just different in many ways. So it was helpful, but not completely.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Michael, you see if you agree with me on this. Even if we're thinking about things that are, let's say, standard repertoire pieces like Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, or not standard rep, like I've heard John Williams' Jurassic Park. They played at different tempos and things. If you had that as your one sample and that was the only thing you knew of it, it could be completely different than it would be if it were played at a different tempo. So, yeah, one sample might not be what you want to base it on, really.
Exactly right. And to that point, the 5 arrangements of the Negro Melodies that he called them, the piano editions, and in those cases, that came first. He wrote the piano ones first, are all designed that you could just play them individually. And many of them are done that way, like Deep River, for example. People will play that one, and you don't have to play all 24. You can just play that one. We couldn't use those as reference, really, because the 5 that he decided to orchestrate, he very clearly intended them to be as a suite. In that, in the 5th movement, he returns to the first movement. So it's very, like at the end, as like a coda. Yeah. And so it's very obvious that he meant for it to sort of have a flow from one movement to the next in a way. And it's not in order. I mean, he picked and chose from the... Picked and chose. I don't know how you say that. From the 24 out of order, and so you're right that you can't, you have to build your own interpretation.
Yeah.
But it was liberating in a sense because we were the first to do it. We could build our own or build our own interpretation of it. But Curtis Stewart said this the best. He said, and I completely agree with him, that we hope that we hear other recordings of this repertoire come out, because people will have different interpretations. People will have better interpretations even, but people will, I can't wait to hear somebody come along and say, oh, that's interesting. I never didn't even think of it like that. I really like that, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Yep. What do you have planned for the rest of 2026? You have the month of January planned, I'm sure, all the way up to February 1st with the Grammys. But then after that, what happens? What's new?
Yeah, well, busy schedule. Things are going very well. I just got back from a tour to South Africa, and I was invited back. That's exciting. I'll be going back there in July, and then again after that as well. Another trip to Brazil for concerts, which I'm very excited about. And of course, full orchestra season, at the orchestras where I'm at, the Ashland Symphony in Ohio, and the Mid-Atlantic Symphony in Maryland and Delaware, and the Northern Eck Orchestra in Virginia. And Half Stick will travel. And, interesting and very exciting guest conducting here and there, and you can check my dates at MikeRepper.com. And follow me on TikTok at Art Repertoire, but that's REPPERTOIRE, 2 P's.
Exactly. I do have a question for you. When you're traveling overseas, like South Africa or Brazil, which are fairly far away, do you get there with enough time for doing your time adjustment and practicing with the orchestra and all that, or is it more like you get there and boy, it's time to walk on stage not too long after you arrive? How does it go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always travel the day beforehand, Not so much for that, but for in case there's a problem.
Sure, of course.
If there's some kind of delay or something like that. And thankfully, I've never been and don't intend to be late to anything. I usually don't. If I get jet lag, it's coming back.
Really? Okay.
I think maybe the excitement of being in a new place and working with a new orchestra, or working with an orchestra that I've worked with before or anything, but in a place that's not home. I think the excitement and the energy behind that sort of combat the jet lag in a way that it doesn't affect me quite so bad. Brazil is nice because on the East, it's effectively the same time zone.
Right.
So that's kind of nice. Going to South America is really. I used to work with an orchestra in Peru. I would commute back and forth from New York to Lima and work, like, for example, Saturday in Lima, Sunday in New York, Monday in Lima, and that actually worked perfectly fine because you just sleep overnight and it's the same time zone. So you might be tired, but you're not jet lagged,
Yeah.
So.
And which orchestras were you working with in South Africa?
In South Africa, I had 2 concerts with the Johannesburg Philharmonic, and 1 concert with the KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic, which is an excellent orchestra. KwaZulu-Natal is a state of South Africa in the northeast, because South Africa is also divided into states.
Okay.
And so 2 orchestras with Johannesburg Phil and 1 with KwaZulu-Natal. In July, I'll be going back to the Stellenbosch Festival, which actually is outside of Cape Town. For orchestra concerts there. I've been there the last 2 summers, our summers, their winter.
Okay. You get to enjoy some game park while you're there or something else like that?
Yes. So after not in July, but we just did. After my concerts with KwaZulu-Natal Philharmonic, we went up to Kruger, and it was life-changing. And anybody who's looking for an adventure should absolutely put it on their bucket list of things to do. Yes, it's a long way away, but worth every single penny. I mean, you just see the most unbelievable things. When we saw an elephant that was 2 weeks old, it didn't even know how to use its trunk yet, sort of running around, discombobulated because it didn't really know what to do with itself. Unbelievable adventure. So highly couldn't recommend it anymore.
Yeah, and highly inspirational, I'm sure, too.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it makes you feel small, which is nice. The vastness of the land and the power that these animals have, and it really is striking.
Yeah, Michael, we wish you all the best. If people want to get in touch with you, I know you gave us the TikTok and all that, and let's give it again. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. My website is MikeRepper.com, REPPER.com. And my TikTok is at Repertoire, Facebook at Mike Repper, Instagram at Mike Repper, and you can reach me at any of those things. And thank you for considering the Coleridge-Taylor. And best of luck to everything Symphonina has got going on.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. We're going to listen to some more of your great work that you've conducted on the way out here. And as always, if there's anything we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help to you, just let us know.
Very, very kind.